Hi, I'm Quentin Schultz, author of the book An Essential Guide to Public Speaking. An Essential Guide to Public Speaking. I'm running through the book chapters with these videos, and we're into a very interesting chapter from my perspective. Very interesting. In fact, let me tell you that one of the most difficult public speaking situations I was ever in involved my own mother when she passed away. I had to give the eulogy, and she was not always a nice person. Certainly not always to me. It was very difficult to know how to approach that. Yet, I knew I needed to do it. I was called to do it, and I had to find good things about her to say, and I had to, in a sense, capture her for all of those who were there, to be grateful for the things that she offered us in spite of what a difficult person she was. That was my task. It was a difficult one, but important. As with all occasions, speaking at occasions, chapter 17 is all about speaking at occasions, at special events, at memorials and the like. Of course, we can think of eulogies, as with my mother. We can think of speaking at commencements, at somebody's birthday. We can talk about weddings. The toasts at weddings can be so important, especially the first couple of them, which set the tone for all of the rest of the toasts. There are all kinds of events in our lives that beckon, that call for speakers to help us form a community around that event and remember together and believe together what the speaker says. I believe that this whole idea of speaking at occasion or memorial has religious roots. And in the Christian tradition that I'm part of, I connect it to the Lord's Supper, where we gather together to remember and believe. And then certain words are offered to help us remember and believe together. Sometimes tied in with a sermon or a homily. Sometimes the liturgy itself carries the weight. But in a sense, all occasions where we speak are like liturgies, and they have some of their own rules. So if we have to give a wedding toast, we might look up online, what are the rules for giving a wedding toast? What makes for a good one? Or what makes for a good eulogy? And the like. We mark our lives through public speeches that have to do with special events. We mark our lives. And the speakers are the ones that do the marking for us and with us. Now you see why this is so important. It's almost as if all of these events that we come together for as human beings, to listen to a speaker, to remember and believe, are like religious events of a kind. We take stock together. I'd like to talk with you about that taking stock, about remembering and believing together, marking occasions, doing it as servant speakers, because we're in servant speaking land here. My book is all about how to be a servant speaker, to love your audience as your neighbor. And the audience comes together as neighbors for special events where we mark our lives. These are 4 of the principles I talk about in the book. There are many more, but I want to go over these 4 because they're so crucially important and in many ways interesting when you think about the religious connections here too. So, first of all, brevity. Brevity. We don't want long, rambling, boring presentations when we get together to memorialize something. We want it to be short and sweet, to the point. We really do. We're all there on the edge, waiting to be served. So bring it on, but stay with the point. Don't get off the point. Keep it brief. Second, humor. Humor is so important. Why is humor important at special events like eulogies or commencements? Why humor? Because humor is down to earth. It comes from humus, the soil. To be humble, humus, humble, down to earth. When we take stock of our lives together, the marking of our lives, we do it humbly. We realize that there is a bigger picture out there. There's much more to life than what we can capture together. But we have the courage to move ahead together and to recall what it is that's happened to us together. With humor, we do it down to earth. Not up high in the sky as if looking down to everybody. We're in this together, humor. And the best humor, of course, is comedic humor. Comedic, like comedy. Humor that's in the form of a story with a happy ending. So at a eulogy, we tell a couple of stories about the person who has passed away. And we capture some things that happened in their lives that they made it through, difficult times. And that's what I did with my mother at her eulogy. She lived through the Great Depression. And one time in her life that I most connected with her more than any other time was when I asked her about what it was like living through the Great Depression. And she started telling me about the difficulties in her family and with her sisters, and she started crying. It was amazing. I connected with her. I empathized with her in a way that was not typical because she was a difficult person. Well, when I told that story, that comedy story, everybody felt good because I recalled on behalf of my mother that she made it through that and through other difficulties in her life. Comedy. You think of speaking at a commencement, a celebration for somebody who's graduating, and we recall some of the difficult times they went through, all night for exams, but they made it through. The difficulty of a particular course, they were right on the edge, were they going to pass or not, but they made it through. It's comedy. It's humor. Humor is very important as we mark occasions. Story. Always use stories. Stories of the people or the organizations that we're commemorating. If we are speaking on behalf of an organization that is marking its own anniversary, let's say a business that's been around for 5 years, and they're celebrating 5 years in business, they've made it for 5 years, we want a couple of stories about what the business has been through, how it's made it. Maybe some stories about the people who lead the organization. But we always want stories as we mark occasions. Quirks. Quirks. Now, here's a controversial one, and I encourage you to look at the chapter in the book because you can get off track on this. But we all have quirks. And when we come together to memorialize someone for accomplishment or they're passing away, to talk a little bit about their quirks can help us be endeared to them, to find them once again endearing, and to be endeared together with respect to that person. Endearing. Quirks make us endearing. I have quirks. Some of them are speaking quirks. My children used to make fun of me because of some things I did, one of which I would come home from work and I was real tired and I would want to play with them so badly, but I was so tired. I'd say, well, let's just put a board game on the floor. And then I would lie down on the sofa right next to it and start playing the board game, and then I would fall asleep right in the middle of playing the game, sometimes with my arm out there on the floor to move my character on the board. I would fall asleep. And it wouldn't surprise me if when I pass away, my family talks about me and they say, yeah, Dad was really committed to the family. He would come home from work and he would always play with us, lie down on the sofa, and there he was, bonk, out cold. The quirks. Quirks can really help us recognize the endearing qualities, but never quirks that we would not say to that person directly, not out of nastiness, but out of joy and delight for the kind of person that they are. So quirks we have to be careful of. Now, using these four among the various techniques I talk about for memorializing events, these are tied together with a theme. So it's best when we are speaking at occasions to have some kind of theme. What's the theme for it? A word or a phrase that we might even come back to repeatedly. So if I were using these four devices in giving a speech to mark an occasion, after the first bit of humor, I might say, and he loved to sleep, in reference to me, see? He loved to sleep. Take those little naps. Or a story, he loved to sleep. Or the quirks, he loved to sleep. He was a sleeper, and we could have some fun with that too. So to have a theme is really important. Let me say again, these celebrations in our lives that we come together to memorialize with a speaker are deeply human. They are part of our nature, and in fact, we need them. We need them. Otherwise, life goes on as a kind of rubble, noise. We have holidays, holy days, and other special days that we mark, like birthdays, anniversaries, because these are meaningful. They give our lives meaning, and we can come together and speak at them to help us share in that meaning. This is a great calling for servant speakers, and I encourage you to learn how to do it well and to do it on behalf of other people. You will serve them. They will appreciate it. Thank you.